Hi, I'm Cal, and today I'm going to talk about this treasure chest scene that I made last summer. This is not a tutorial or how-to, but I am going to talk you through all the various elements of this and how I did them. Now, this treasure chest has a special feature where it has a secret hidden compartment where you can hide your own treasure in it. Ta-da! And looking at it, no one would even know. Now, this treasure chest is not my design. It came from another tutorial here on YouTube by Kawaii. The link to that will be in the description down below, and maybe the iCard section if I can figure out how to do that. This is also not my first attempt at it. My first attempt is this one. This one I made following her tutorial exactly up until the point of adding hardware. Now, since this was just a test, I didn't want to add the hardware, but I still wanted the lid to stay on, so what I did for that was I put a couple of popsicle sticks in to hold it on by friction. And it stays on pretty well, actually. Now, a couple of things I learned making this were that I wanted mine to be taller, and that she suggested watering down the acrylic paint, and I decided that I watered it down too much. And also, the watered down acrylic paint melts the tacky glue that you use to glue all of this together. So I definitely did that differently on my final piece. But overall, it's a pretty cute little box, which is why I wanted to make it in the first place. Now, the one that I made, I didn't want it to stay on this permanently, so I have it attached with blue tack. That it's been attached long enough that it takes a bit to get it off there. The main difference between this, my finished piece, and the one I made straight from the tutorial is I added a row of popsicle sticks to all of the sides so that it would be a little bit taller. And I made the lid another popsicle stick taller. So the proportions are quite a bit different, but I felt like this looked a little bit more like a treasure chest. Not that I don't like this one, but it is a little short. And for this one, I also added some supports to the bottom. As you can see in the original, there was no support for the bottom. And in this one, I decided the bottom needed a little more support, so I added some sticks to give it that support. Other than that, I followed her tutorial pretty much exactly. I used all the same materials that she does. All of these metal bits are real metal made from the tin around a tea light. And all these little rivets are from this nail art kit, which I thought was very clever. And then This is a jump ring, and this is half a jump ring, and this is also the tea light metal. And then all of this is painted with alcohol ink. And these hinges are hinges I found on Amazon for making dollhouse doors. And this brown is actually a mix of 3 different acrylic browns. I tested a few to see what would give me the most treasure chest-ish looking brown. And then it's sealed with Mod Podge. Now this is a matte Mod Podge, but it is surprisingly glossy. I also distressed the chest quite a bit before I put the final coat of paint on. I just took some sandpaper to the corners and to some of the planking and the walls, since it's supposed to be an old chest, and an old chest isn't going to look perfect. Unfortunately, that final coat of paint hid a lot of the distressing that I did, but you can still see some of it. It still looks pretty good. Now the insert for it is just a piece of cardboard that I cut down to be the right shape. And then I, made the top look like the treasure that would be on the inside. This is a base of Kleenex to give it this shape. And then on top of that is glitter. This glitter. First I did a layer of this micro glitter just to make sure that if there was any gaps it would still be gold. And then on top of that is several layers of this hex glitter. And then on top of that this is a Barbie necklace. It's unmodified. This is a pearl necklace I made myself with little plastic pearls from Joanne probably. And little jewels. The jewels on this and the jewels on the base, I actually spent a lot of time looking for little rhinestones that were small enough. And I finally found this kit that has a lot of various sizes, and I mostly used these 2, the smallest sizes, for everything because those were the only ones that were small enough. This goblet in the middle is the handle for taking it out of the treasure chest, and it's a Lego goblet that I painted with the ink and then glued jewels onto, and it's attached onto the base with a piece of wire. It's just looped around the center of the goblet and down through the base, and then so that when you pull on it you pull the whole base, and then it just goes in here like this. And it's a little tight. This is actually my second version because the first version I made didn't fit in the treasure chest anymore when I was done with it. This one does, but it is a little bit tight. But that's okay. That makes it seem a little less like there's actually a way to get it out of there. Onto the base. This base is just a piece of scrap wood that I painted with acrylic paint, and then I sealed it with Mod Podge. And I did paint the whole thing. I wasn't sure at the time how much of it I was going to cover in sand. Turns out it was the whole top, but those are things you figure out as you go. I built up the mounds around the treasure chest that would have been formed when it was dug out of the ground by putting some tissue paper on the base and building up the general shape of the mounds that I wanted. And then the rest of this is just painting it with glue and dumping sand on it and letting it dry, and then painting it again with glue in places that needed to be built up more, dumping sand on it, letting it dry. It took forever, but it looks really good. Before I did any of the sand, because I knew I wanted these skeleton pieces in here, I built those into the tissue paper base from the start so that there would be places for them to go once it was built up with sand. Now, these skeleton pieces are from a Halloween like table confetti stuff that we've had for years, and I just pulled a couple pieces out to be the unfortunate soul who was guarding the chest. Now this is a charm that I found at Joann. I found this set of nautical themed charms that, you know, this one was perfect. Obviously I had to get the whole set because they don't just sell them individually. But, you know, this is a good like globe that's been left here with the rest of the treasure. Now this key is also from a set of charms that I found at a craft store. All these great old-fashioned looking keys. None of them were quite the right color. I wanted them to match all of the hardware on the treasure chest, and some of them were close. The key that I chose, because it looked the best, was not the right color. So I painted it with the alcohol ink so it matches the hardware on the chest. And this is another Barbie necklace that I also painted with the alcohol ink, and the green is green Sharpie. And of course you can see all of the doubloons strewn around and little jewels. And these again are the gold hex glitter that I used on the insert in the treasure chest, and the rhinestones that I found in that little set. And my favorite part of this scene are these swords right here. These swords are super easy to make. In fact, I'm going to put up a video on how to make these. And I could put it in here because they are just so easy, but I thought that they might do better as their own video. Now, these are cocktail picks that have just been colored with Sharpie and alcohol ink, and with more of those little rhinestones that I found. Really super easy, and they look really good. To make it look like they're stuck in the sand, I cut off the end of them at an angle and glued them to the base with hot glue before I put all the sand on. So I had to put all the sand on, trying not to knock these off of here. Didn't completely manage it. I knocked off one of them once. That way I could build up the sand around the base a little bit to make it look more like they were actually stuck in the sand. And that's it! I hope you enjoyed this tour through my little treasure chest scene, and I hope it gave you some ideas for your own creations. If you liked this video or found it useful, please hit that like button down below and share it with someone else you think might enjoy it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.